What is the creepiest, most blood-chilling thing you or someone you know have ever experienced? When I was 16, my parents went out of town for a weekend. It was actually pretty sweet because I got to be king of the castle for the weekend. So I get home that Friday night and just dick around. Internet, video games, etc. and start watching TV around dusk. The way our living room was set up was that there was a set of glass doors right next to the television that looked out to the back porch backyard. The backyard was surrounded by ivy that grew on a hill around a 45-degree angle. So I'm just mindlessly channel surfing and I see some movement outside. At first I just dismiss it thinking it's a bird or a neighborhood cat or something. But I then notice that whatever is moving is way bigger than a bird or a cat. I go and put my face near the glass and stare into the backyard and there's some dude just crouching in the ivy looking into the house. Our eyes meet and he has somewhat of an "oh shit" moment and bolts out of our yard. Scared the shit out me. A bear ran across my yard. A huge bear. I'm in fucking South Jersey. I was 8 and woke up to an explosion of dog barks and screams coming from our backyard and their screams trailing down the street. We get outside and my dog is chewing on a bloody shoe and a bit of gym shorts were hanging off the backyard fence. We call the cops, they investigate. From the footprints they could see the guy tried every window with my dog following. When he got to mine, my dog went full attack mode. The guy was picked up that night on an unrelated charge, but they put 2 and 2 together later and charged him. My dog allowed him to collect the gym shorts, but that shoe was his. He was happy and let the cops pet him as much as they liked. Animal control the next day when they drew a little blood for a rabies test. That shoe though was his. When I was 3, our home was broken into. The burglar stole money off of my parents' dresser, and then went into my room and just stared over my sleeping body. I woke up and saw him. My father watched him from his bedroom while calling the police. When the burglar left and the police were there with the lights on, his footprints were in the shag carpet. This is my earliest memory. When I was about 6 or 7. We had this neighbor that would regularly try to invite me over for cake and candy, or to play with the dogs he owned. My parents didn't trust him, so of course, invites were declined. Years later, we learned that he regularly raped his 12-year-old stepdaughter and got her pregnant. When he went to trial, it was revealed that there were 4 other young girls in his past that he had abused. The guy used to decorate his house like a haunted mansion every Halloween, and kids would go crazy for it. I'm so glad that my parents wouldn't allow me to go there. Oh, I love these threads. I hope this one takes off so I can add it to my collection of saved links. As for me, the creepiest thing that ever happened was when I was 5. My mom, my sister, and I were living in a small trailer in a rural town in Gar. My sister and I went to bed, and a little while later my mom followed suit. Around 11 p.m. my mom heard me calling out, "Mama, Mama." She checked the bedroom and didn't see me in there. She knew I sleepwalked, so she started checking the rest of the trailer. She didn't find me anywhere, and I had stopped calling her. She had checked under furniture, in closets, in appliances. I like to hide in the dryer at that age, in the kitchen cabinets. She eventually found me standing outside on the front porch in my underwear. She never figured out how I got outside, as the front and back doors were locked by the handle and by chain locks. The windows were shut, and were a type that can only be shut from the inside. I feel like this will get buried, but when I was in primary school, this old man used to work on their playground. He'd just monitor the children and make sure everything was okay. He'd always invite me over for dinner and used to talk about his wife who was at home waiting for him to get back. He used to tell me about his dogs and say that I could feed them treats if I met them. I used to beg my mum to let me go to his house and she would always outright refuse. I was bummed because his house sounded fun and I wanted to meet his dogs, but my mum's word was the law, so I got over it. He somehow found out my address and sent me a Christmas card one year. Fast forward to when I'm in secondary school and his name is all over the paper. Sentenced for raping a 6-year-old girl. It also turned out that his wife had died years ago. I was only 8 when I knew him, but I still remember what he looked like, and I'll always be glad that my mum was so protective. I was on a business trip from San Fran to LA last day in town. I finish early and head to the beach. Stop by a payphone. Call the airline. May I please have a later flight so I can watch the sunset from the beach? Nice airline lady says it's done. Later that night, I get home. My wife is laughing her ass off. I knew you weren't dead, she kept saying. Turns out, the owners of the company I worked for, the same guys that had bought the original tickets for the flight, had been calling her, telling her how sorry they were for her loss. My supervisor was in tears, and wifey is laughing, telling them all I'm not dead. My original flight home was that Southwest Airlines flight from the 80s where a disgruntled baggage handler had gotten on the plane with a pistol and put a bullet in the backs of the heads of the 2 pilots. The plane crashed and burned, killing all on board, near San Luis Obispo. It was a good sunset on the beach. Watching my big dog get hit by a car and go flying through the air while my neighbor's bigger dog got ran over and tumbled again and again by the same car at the same time. Bumpers were ripped off and pieces of the exhaust were all over the road. I was 10 years old, home alone, and had to run into my neighbor's house to tell them their dog was unconscious and lying in a pool of blood. Both dogs lived, but it was a long recovery for both. I was standing in front of the oncoming car, on the side of the road. It's burned in my memory. There was woods on both sides of the road and the dogs were chasing each other. I couldn't have known or prevented it. This is probably not going to be seen, but that's okay. So my cousin used to be a divorce lawyer in Arkansas. He was representing the wife. Husband was abusive and kinda crazy. Well, husband starting believing wife was with my cousin. So he kidnapped my cousin, tied him up and put him in the basement, beat him and dripped acid on him for 3 fucking days. On the 3rd day husband said he would go get wife, make her watch cousin die then kill wife. So husband left cousin somewhat and tied himself, got out of the house and rolled down the street until someone picked him up. The couple that found him were scared and dumped him into a Walmart parking lot and called 911. 100% true. Here's the proof. http caselaw.findlaw.com/r-supreme-court/1092475.html. Seeing the aftermath of blood and matter of my father's tragic death. He was hit by a car while walking and killed instantly. Got to the scene as fast as I could. His body was already bagged but everything else remained. His clothing that literally scraped off of him as he was dragged down the street. Shoes, and miscellaneous things that were in his pockets. Fucked me up for a long time. It's been 3 years and I'm doing alright now. I can finally talk about it, Doc, but I went into a very dark place those first 2 years. I was home alone once when I was about 13, and I took some Oreo cookies out of the cupboard, leaving them on the counter as I went into the bathroom. When I came out 5 minutes later, they were gone. I never found the cookies. When I was a kid, I was rummaging around in the basement and found a gun. I, like a moron, pointed it at myself and almost pulled the trigger, not thinking. I was young. Maybe I thought it was a toy. I can't be sure. I stopped 'cause I heard something upstairs. Stashed the gun back where I found it. A few years later I went and looked at the gun. It hadn't moved from where I put it. And it was in fact loaded. There was also a time when I was 13. I was swimming in the lake and pushed off of the bottom to come back up for air. My foot slipped between tree roots and I couldn't reach the surface. The most chilling part for me was my fingertips were barely skimming the surface tension of the water. I was terrified, and after a few seconds of kicking and panic, I swam downwards and pried the roots off my foot. I'm still afraid of drowning. When I was in middle school, a boy used to follow me home a lot. I would tell him to leave me alone, but he would just follow me. I told my parents and they just said he probably had a crush on me. I was called to the school social worker one day, and turns out the boy had been writing about how much he loved me in a journal he left at school by accident. He had love poems about me, descriptions of what I wore every day, and he even had a bracelet I thought I had lost taped into it. But the part that bothers me the most is that he had stolen a few reeds I had in a box in the band room. He said it was because they smelled like the chapstick I wore every day. It still scares me to this day that someone was that obsessed with me. I still get anxiety that he's somehow going to find me. No one incident, but multiple ones. I have often woken up late at night. My door is open and I swear I can see an outline of someone standing there. I feel my chest tighten and I can't breathe. My skin hurts for some reason, like pinpricks all over my body. After a minute or so of watching, my eyes adjust so I can see no one is actually there, and their terror drains from me. Happens every once in a while and scares the shit out of me each time. 3 months ago my girlfriend and I were sleeping when at 6:30 in the morning I hear a blood-curdling scream that sounded like it was right outside our bedroom window. I pop out of bed and run to the window and I see nothing. After a few seconds I look over at my girlfriend and she's laughing. She set the screaming goat as her alarm for the morning and thought it would be funny to wake me up that way. When I was around 10 or 11 I think, my friend and I went for a bike ride. We were neighbors and lived out in the country. We were on a particularly empty road, mostly woods and fields, not a lot of houses or people around. A large commercial van, the kind with the large rolling door at the back, if I recall correctly, was parked at the side of the road. My friend and I rode closer and the driver was out of the van and he asked us if we wanted some water. We said no thanks. He told us it was no big deal. He had lots in the back of his van. We just said no again and turned around and rode our bikes back home. I don't remember even telling my parents about it. Like by the time we got back home we went in the pool or something and totally forgot about it. I can only imagine why this guy was trying to get 2 young girls into the back of his van. It makes me cringe every time I think about it. I'm glad we were smart enough to know we needed to get out of there fast. My senior year of high school, a local gay kid at the university was beaten to death outside a gas station. 5 grown guys against this one, like 90-pound kid. Stood no chance. My friend worked at the subway across the street and discovered the body when he went to get a pack of cigarettes on break. My friend was openly gay. Finding the body fucked him up. Learning after the guys got caught that the kid died for something like that was worse. A year ago I was driving home from college. It's a 3-hour drive and you cross the boonies to get between the 2 destinations. On my way home I realized I had forgotten to get gas. So I took an exit off of the freeway into a small town to get gas. I pulled up to what I guess was a locally owned gas station cause it was closed, but you could still use your debit credit card. I pulled up to the pump and heard movement in the tree line to the west of me. As I looked over, I saw two huge guys emerging from the tree line, running straight at me with masks on. I ran back into my car and drove away with him only a few feet away from me. I called the cops and gave my statement. Apparently those two guys have already badly beaten a few people and killed one and are hitting different towns. Thanks for watching. If you like, please subscribe.